Today's episode is such a treat. I got to sit down in real life with my dear friend and human design teacher, Samantha Fotenhauer, in Austin, Texas. And we chatted about her human design experiment, which has been going on for 7 years now. She dives into the practical ways that she started to follow her sacral response and how you can too. We also talked about how human design shouldn't be used as a rigid rule book, but rather a living, intuitive system that brings you back home to yourself. And make sure you tune in all the way until the end because we get a little more nuance and Sam shares how your open centers in human design might be blocking your next aligned step. This conversation is juicy, real, and it's such a good one. I can't wait for you to listen. Let's dive in. So, how long have you been in your human design experiment now?
So I'm coming up on 7 years,
Oh,
which
wow.
is significant because Raw, the founder of human design, would say it takes 7 years. I learned about human design in October of 2018. And right now we're in April of 2025. And I started experimenting immediately, but it was very simple. Like I just learned about the sacral response. And so I just started paying attention to if I would feel excited by something and if my body was excited. And I knew I was an emotional authority. And so that was in the back of my head. But at 2018, there wasn't a lot of things out there. Like I remember looking on Instagram and except Jen and Zoe, who's how I found human design through. Jen and Zoe did like a tour. Jen and Zoe is a human design creator. She makes my human design, which a lot of people are familiar with. And she popularized human design in a new way to a new generation. And she did a tour with a bunch of very popular spiritual podcasts at the time. She was on the Balanced Wand, almost 30, and To Be Magnetic.
That's totally how I found her.
Yeah. And it was through one of them and I listened to all of them. And then it really struck me. And then it was about a year later, I got deeper into it. It was hard to find resources for it. And then 2 years later, more and more stuff were coming out. And I like really started studying it.
But it sounds to me like you actually understood your strategy right away. Like, did you truly grasp, like, wait, I'm actually supposed to wait for like things to come to me and actually respond with my sacral?
I understood what they were talking about. I remember, so I was a lawyer at that time. I was practicing corporate law at like it's called Big Law, this large law firm in New York City. And I remember this, I really want and early on in my law school, I was like a first year student. I really wanted to spend the summer in Denver because I went the summer before and I was like, this is awesome. And I might want to live here and I really want a job here. But it's hard to get a job in a different city than you're going to law school or don't have ties to when you're really early on. And I was volunteering at this environmental conference at Tulane where I went to law school. And I had applied to some stuff in Denver and like I wasn't hearing back from anything. And it'd be cool to do environmental work. And this guy just came in front of me and he was a speaker at this conference. And I gave him this form to fill out and he wrote his address and it said Denver. And I had this and then I was like, you live in Denver? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I really want a job in Denver this summer. And he was like, okay, well, find me later. So, just like, okay, well, whatever. And then later I went up to him and I said, my name is Sam. I'm really interested in environmental law. I have an environmental degree. I blah, blah, blah. Tell me about your work. I really want to work with you. And he was like, yeah, I mean, I can hire you as an intern. You'll pay, but that could work. He worked at this large environmental nonprofit, which I had already applied to, but knew I would never hear from them because it was so big and I'd get so many applications. And I felt this and it just came to me in front of me and then it worked. And I spent that summer in Denver and ended up getting job offers in Denver and like it turned into all this stuff. I didn't pursue that route, but I knew it. And I saw it, like I had tried to make it happen and it wasn't working. But I set that like, I'm open for this. And then it came in front of me and then I responded to it and it worked.
I actually want to break this down one step further for the manifesting generators out there, because this is part of the strategy that I don't think I understood for my first couple of years, is that you got your sacral response from seeing that Denver on what was it, the address or whatever.
Yeah.
And you, like you said, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. But then You kind of initiated.
Yes.
Yes. And this is the part of being a manifesting generator that I think I got tripped up with a little bit. I got a little dogmatic with human design, which I think people can do when it's like you're more intellectual about it versus just like trying it on for size. And I thought, like, I really just have to wait, like, wait for things to come to me over and over again. But it's no, what did your sacral get excited about? And then you get to use your manifester part of you and like initiate and make it happen.
Go after it. And I actually think even as a generator, you would do the same thing because no one, I'm a first year law student, I'm 22 years old. No Denver law firm is going to recruit me and email me on LinkedIn and be like, we're really interested in you. Like, that's not going to happen. And so I think of it as the response saying, this is true that you want this. This isn't something you just made up. This is true that you want this. And there's a doorway. And then you now get to take the next step to actualize it. And how I even knew I was interested in Denver was similar. Like I had applied to school in Boulder, was accepted, but I didn't really consider it because I never had a response to it before, and I didn't get as much scholarship money. So it just wasn't. It didn't feel aligned. And then I went there afterward, just coincidentally on a road trip, and I was like, I felt so alive. I felt so in my body. I had so much fun. I met all these cool people. We like dressed up in costumes, or on a bikes ride, and went to a concert, and I was like, oh, this is I wanted to go to Denver because of how I felt when I was there. It was like lighting up my sacral. And that's why I was interested in it. So I'd responded. And then I tried to make it work, kind of what you're saying, kind of forced it. Like it's hard to know. But I tried, didn't work, and then it came to me again. And then I tried again. And I think that's the thing with manifesting generators, anybody responding, is if you're having a response, try, but it might not work. But I think it's better to try if you feel that excited. And then if it's not, relax and see if more of it will come to you. It could be an easier way. But I think if it's something that you want, it's better to try and then it not work than just stay at home and hope it'll find you.
Yes. I agree with that. And I agree that like even if like let's say you're at the beginning of your journey and you feel like I don't even know if I'm really in tune with what my sacral response feels like, taking action and actually trying some things and maybe figuring out what you know for sure isn't your sacral, like, oh wow, this choice really drained me. So now I know next time like that was not the right place to go. And then kind of find your sacral response from there.
Like me saying like, okay, well, everyone in my career development office says I have to go to DC because it's the most logical way if I want to work in environmental work. I apply to DC. And it's like, that would be an example where I never felt excited about it. I never had a stable response. I just feel like I should. That would be an example of me trying something and then it wouldn't feel as good. And then I could compare that with something where it's like, I want to do that. That feels right. Sometimes things can feel right and illogical. Sometimes it can be like, you should do this. That's happened to me before. And I'm like, and I feel excited and it works. But I do think there's that's why it's called an experiment. It's this experimentation to understand what does pushing feel like to me? What is responding? What is like wise action that's inspired feel like versus pushing versus being passive? And we can give these examples, but it really is a felt experience that you just have to try out and see. And there's not that much bad that can happen from it.
And that's the goal of human design is to teach us to not let our minds be the complete drivers of our life and that we actually have that wisdom inside our body, which is amazing. So let's take you like a couple years into like really applying your human design. Was there anything in those first couple years from your chart that you didn't resonate with or that surprised you?
Well, I was really surprised to learn that my sun gate was in gate 59, the gate of sexuality, because I was struggling a lot with sexual connection. And I had experienced a lot of sexual trauma. And so I was like really hoping I could just avoid it. So I was frustrated by that. But I feel like the I don't know if I was surprised, but it was the thing that I really got from it at the beginning was this reminder that these if something isn't feeling fulfilling, your it's not that you're wrong for that.
Yeah.
There's nothing you don't have to make a job that you hate work for you. Like you may choose to stay in it or choose to pursue it because of bigger goals, but but you're not wrong for not liking it. I felt like before I learned about human design, I was like, something in me is wrong for this. I should just be able to like these things. And I felt like I was wrong and I had to fit myself into it. And then with human design, I was like, no, you're actually designed to enjoy what you do. And designed to feel energized by that. And if you're not feeling energized, then maybe this isn't the right path for you. Not that necessarily it's wrong or you're wrong. It's not the right path. And you can stay here if you want for a while. I think there's consequence staying too long and say what if you want for a while. But while you're here, don't start telling yourself that, well, if I was better or I knew more, or I was smarter, then I would like this more. Because that's not true. And so it helped me not take, I was working a job I didn't like, and it helped me not take it so personally and stop myself from writing these stories that it was like that I was wrong.
I love that, Sam. That's amazing. And you've done a lot of human design readings for people. You've taught other human design practitioners. Why do you see a pattern of like when human design finds the person? Like, are people coming in with the same, like, okay, you're ready to like learn your human design? Or is it kind of people coming from all different places in their life?
That's such a good question.
Yeah.
So I have done a lot of readings and I've taught lots of people, like you said. And so I've seen people at so many different places in their life. I see people finding human design at 20 years old. That's more rare. But I also see people finding human design in their 60s. I rarely do readings for people in their 70s that I have. Most are somewhere in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And some people are experienced in their personal development and their spiritual development and maybe have been studying astrology or other ancient wisdom systems for decades and learn about human design, but also many people it's like very early on in the path. So that's actually it's all over in that sense. What I do notice is that people are interested in human design when they're trying to know and understand themselves and at they're looking for a way to help create a different path or a stronger reality in the world. Not necessarily if they want to change their lives. I mean, a lot of people who are like, I like my life, I like my job, I'm a parent, like I'm in this committed relationship, I'm happy with all of this, but I want to know myself more in it. Um, or I'm starting to see the world in a different way because I am, for instance, seeing how my past experiences are impacting my life a lot more. And I never really understood that before, that these childhood experiences or early adulthood could impact me. And I'm starting to really want to think about the world a different way. I want to feel safer. I want to feel more magical. I want to feel more authentic. I want to feel more vibrant. And I'm realizing I have a choice in that. That I actually could shift and create my reality. I'm not just kind of like subject to whatever's happening around me. So I guess if I were to rephrase that, they're moving from a more passive place in their life to a more active place in their life. I think most people that come to me of these hundreds of readings are interested in being active participants in their life. And I just want to speak to anyone out there who's in different places. A lot of people are really trying to understand it like a rule. Like, okay, so if it's this, then do this, then this. And it's kind of disappointing. But it usually doesn't work like that. It's more softer. It's not as rigid because the purpose of it, from my perspective, is to return us to ourselves. It's to bring us into a greater trust and wisdom of our body and to return us to the things that bring us joy and let us prioritize the things that are fulfilling for us in our lives. And so it doesn't really work as a rule book of if you do this, then you'll get everything that you want. Or if I do this, I'll be safe. Or those things. It's more like something we move closer to or further away from. Like imagine a fire. And it's like if you take steps to fire, you'll get warmer and then hotter, and steps away, you'll get cooler. But it's not like one moment you're hot, one moment you're cold. Like one moment you're the fire, and one moment you're not. It's like it's just something that you move closer to and then closer away from. So it's much more fluid and organic. And I say that because it's really hard to do it right. And there's a temptation. Now, I don't know if people who are in this necessarily recognize that they're doing that. But if there's any part of you that is like, if I just figure this out, my life will get so much better. I don't know if it will give you that answer, that what you're looking for. I think the better question is, as I explore this, I'm going to learn a lot more about my life and what I want. And from knowing about what I want and what I like and what makes me feel good, my life can feel more aligned and more fulfilling.
Mm. Yeah, what you said, I resonate with so much because I think, and you can let me know if this is kind of how you were. When I had my spiritual awakening, there's highs and lows of it. And like there was definitely a period just not even that long ago for me where I was reaching, I was miserable where I was at. So I was looking for those quick fixes. And like I did look to human design and different like seeing a medium and stuff as like, give me the answer. And if I just follow this, like my life is going to be amazing. Not understanding that, like you said, kind of having human design as an application in the background to everything you do and just having it like keeping it in mind. Like, am I operating according to the way that my energy chart tells me is most aligned for me? And then following that, but not making it like if I don't follow this, everything's over and it's not going to work. And like I'm still gonna be miserable. And I've taken the steps in my life now and made really huge changes. And so many of them were so hard. But I'm in a place just currently where like really, I feel safe, happy, secure. I'm more calm about life. And now I feel like I am looking at my human design as like that value add versus that like if I follow this, all my goals will be hit and everything's just gonna fall into place. Yeah.
Exactly. And something I just like to remind myself and other people is like, look around. There's a lot of people who live aligned, healthy lives. Never heard of it. Like, there's plenty of them. There's plenty of them that aren't spiritual or would call themselves that. I think many who live a life that really feels inspiring, not necessarily just from, attainment of wealth or certain achievements or something, but they're alive to life. They love their lives and they love themselves and they love other people. They're compassionate and they want to give to others. And like, I would call that spiritual intelligence, whether or not they identify with any certain belief system, because I think spiritual intelligence is around recognizing that this life is precious and that the more that we orient towards love, the better everything is. But most people don't know about it and are doing well.
They're doing just fine.
It's a great tool, though, which is why we study it and why we're so interested in it. And the other thing is that, again, really what it's doing, it's like it's helping you learn how to read your own GPS system. Because no, as psychics and I practice psychic work, healers, therapists, all sorts of practitioners on the spectrum of personal development, coaches can guide you. Sometimes you're like, it needs to be clear. It's like you are not being kind to yourself, or you're in a relationship that's toxic, and like someone does need to just say it because it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's meant to be an answer that we come to on our own. We have to learn how to do it on ourselves. Like it's great to have a calculator, but it's really good to know addition and subtraction on our own. And like we have to learn how to have that skill of trusting ourselves, of knowing what feels right, which is why nobody can ever fully give it to us. Because even if they tell it to us, we have this experience all the time. People are like, you're good at gifted this. And it's like, we don't believe it. Or this can happen. It's like, we don't believe it because we haven't accepted it in ourselves. And so with human design, it doesn't work to have it as this rule book or this yes or no, because it's more about a way of experiencing life rather than a cheat code to achieve something.
Yes. And let me tell you, when you experience life applying your human design, it is just like so much sweeter. It's so amazing.
It's so much sweeter. There's so much more magic that comes. Like, that's why I believe in the system so much as a tool, as one of many, because it's just this vehicle to return us to ourselves. And when I say that, what I mean by that, just outside of this, like, that's kind of like spiritual language. So
Yeah.
when I say return us to ourselves, what I mean is every person, I believe every soul has things that are important to them. They have values and they have desires. And sometimes we're taught those things, and sometimes, but some feel true to us and some feel they don't feel true. And everybody on this planet has been conditioned by our parents, which is good. We need to teach young, like, it's good to have guidance. It's good that, when we're 3 years old and 5 years old, we learn concepts around sharing and saying thank you and expressing gratitude. Like, it is good that adults are teaching children things. We have to pass these lessons on. And people teach us things that actually aren't true for us because it was true for them, or they passed on trauma, or their values, or whatever. And every adult who wants to live a really fulfilled life has to go through a process where they figure out what is important to me.
Right.
What is important to me? What do I want in life? What feelings do I want to experience? And it sounds simple, but that actually is a pretty big ask. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Usually it requires a lot of sifting through difficult emotions, and processing difficult emotions. And what it gives you is a return to a self understanding. So knowing this is what I want, this is what I need, how I need to behave and hold myself to feel like I'm a person that I respect and I trust. And this is what would make my life feel fulfilling. And that's what I mean by return to yourself. And so human design is a way into that because it can give us steps
Yeah.
to do that. And it can help us, it can speed up this process of like, well, what is important to me versus what other people say important? Because sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. Sometimes they're the same, sometimes they're different. You can't always tell. Human design gives us this tool that can help you kind of guess or have starting points, and then you test it out to see if it's right for you.
Yes, that's so cool. And as you were saying that, I was totally thinking about the emotional aspect because we've been talking about that a lot this weekend as we've been hanging out. And I think that's actually like for many people, the first place they need to start, especially for, I mean, I was still in a generation where we weren't really allowed to express our feelings. And so with human design, it is so cool to see like, oh, okay, this is my strategy and I'm an emotional authority and I should be, making my decisions with my emotions and stuff like that. But if we actually don't even know what it feels like to come back to yourself, like you said, to feel like that's almost the first place to start. And I know you've done a lot of work with people on emotional healing. What are you kind of finding is an ongoing theme for everybody that they're working on with that?
Almost no adult currently I live in the United States, so there's all these factors, but very, very few people know how to identify what they're feeling, know how to match what they're feeling with sensations in their body. So when we're feeling happy, it could show up as like almost like bubbles, like champagne in your belly. And if you're feeling scared, it could feel like your throat closing, or it could feel like your stomach clenching, and different fear will present in different parts. So basically, this idea that our emotions are shown in our body, meaning our body has sensations that match them, and that gives us information, and that our emotions can actually give us a lot of information that can help us understand what we want, what we care about, what's right for us. And a lot of people don't know that at all. Brene Brown did this survey. She thinks surveyed like 10,000 adults, maybe a lot more, but it was enough. And she found that the average American adult is only aware of three emotions at the time it's happening: happy, sad, or angry. And so when they're experiencing emotions, I'm happy, I'm sad, or angry. Maybe on like retrospect, they can identify others. So if that's true, and I would say that's across the board, it's very, very difficult to get to a place where you can identify your desires or identify what you want out of life because part of the process of doing that will require us to confront some emotions. So the reason why we'd have to confront some emotions is, let's say, I'll use myself as an example. I was a very ambitious child and very academically oriented. My immediate family is academically oriented. I graduated law school at 24 and I went right to work in prestigious legal jobs immediately. My identity was very much connected to ambition and intellect. And my truth, my soul was saying, I want work that feels more creative. I want work that feels more fulfilling and purposeful. I don't actually want to be at the computer reading for 12 hours a day, writing. I want to be interacting with people. But that felt like it contradicted with, but if you're intelligent and you're smart, then you do this sort of work. So to be able to listen to this desire and say, it's okay to want creative work, it's okay to do something different, like more emotional health stuff, I had to navigate feelings of, what if I'm not smart? What if people are mad at me? What if they're not proud of me? What if they think I'm down? What if they think I'm not capable? Which brings up all these emotions. So to be able to honor what I want, I had to be able to wade through those emotions and understand what the emotions were. Otherwise, what happens is you say, those emotions are too much. Turns out I actually don't want that. I love being a lawyer. I love everything.
Or you just like eat a brownie and then get on with it.
I'm just saying, ignore it. This is what life is. You can't always love it. I'm just pass and accept it. That's it. And so the reason it's so hard is because when we start having these things where we want that thing, it brings up all this stuff. Maybe we have stories that that's unattainable, we're not deserving of it, it's unsafe, whatever. So you have to deal with the emotions. No one has tools for that. No one was taught. There's nothing wrong with you for not having the tools, but the majority don't. That might be different with the younger generation. We've learned a lot more about emotional health. The kids coming up, Gen Alpha and following generations, might have a different story. For millennials and for older, not the case. And so you have to learn those skills. And so there's nothing wrong with you, but it is, if you want to grow and to have the fulfillment, I think it's pretty much necessary for everyone. Just like if you want to be healthy, you're going to have to learn how to exercise in a way that works for you. Like you just have to, you can't really get around it.
Yeah. And I'm kind of seeing a thread here of like what you talked about before of really connecting to, for you, your strategy as a generator and MG is your sacral response. And then connecting with your authority on top of that is be coming home to your body and feeling your body. But would you say that actually the first step is getting to know these emotions that are coming up so that you can like almost go through that to then hear your own
I
intuition?
think they came hand in hand.
It can be one or the other.
Yeah, I don't think you can make it be like
First I need
that.
to do all this emotional healing and then I can focus on my human
Yeah. I think they come hand in hand. Like I would, when I was sitting at that chair singing the Denver, I didn't think about emotional healing. I was like, that looks cool. I want to do that. Now I was a pretty confident kid and I had done really well in law school. So I was feeling already confident in myself to go up and be like, there.
Yeah.
But I could see somebody who was like, I really want to do that, but I'm too scared to go talk to them, which would be normal. And then I would say, go work on that. So you can go after this. But you'll have things that you can respond to that are within your emotional capability and do those.
Mm-hmm.
But then as you're ready, probably, or as you're not ready, but as time, you'll start getting things that you want that maybe are outside your emotional capability. Like I'm realizing I really want a partnership, but I'm really scared of emotional intimacy. I'm really scared to be seen. I'm really scared to be loved. So that would be a great sign. Like I think the great thing is life gives you the opportunity.
It really does.
So you don't even have to look for it. It's just having the awareness to know if I want that thing and I don't feel like I can have it, then it may be in these emotions. Because a lot of people just don't know that that's like the piece that they need to enable their next step.
Yeah. What is life giving you right now in present day, Sam, with kind of maybe you needing to look at your human design again and apply it?
Great question. So present day Sam. So that I'm just going to say some of the things that I'm working on and then seeing what connects to my human design. I'm well, one of the biggest is creative expression and having several as a manifesting generator. I have several things I'm interested in and I'm still doing that. So one of the biggest challenges for me, I have another really good manifesting generator friend, Dana, met her last night, Helena, and we always talk about having 3 things for a week that we're working on and just 30. And not even just professionally, like my 3 goals this week might be like, I really need to clean my house or like take care, call health appointments, whatever. But then like the other 2, because otherwise I'll have 6.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I'm trying to do 6 things at once and it's not working and I'm not making progress on any of them as much as I want. And I feel overwhelmed. And I feel like I can't do the other stuff that's really important. So letting myself have many things, but just 3. And then knowing like next week could be another 3 things and trusting where my energy is. So part of it is like portioning my time. So allowing myself to do too much, but as the energy not getting spread too thin. Some people want to do many things at once and then they lose focus and we're not completing. Asking for help. So I struggle to ask for help. I mean, I think a lot of people do. I don't know where exactly that's in my MG hood. Maybe part of my defined art, a little more advanced, my channel of initiation of just like wanting to do it on my own. Maybe I'll come back to that.
But maybe also you're totally open spleen because you feel everybody else's like primal needs. And maybe you always are thinking, I need to help them.
Yeah. Yes, that could be it. So asking for help to help me with my creative projects, my like working out more and like doing harder workouts, which I view as my open spleen because I'm clearing out because I work in emotional health and with fear and anxiety and wellness. That's a lot of that comes into the spleen. It comes in the emotional center, but also comes into the spleen. And I'm helping people feel safer in their body and safer in their lives and navigate fear and using my intuition to kind of feel into other people. And I do that through that splenic energy. And then I have to clear it out. And so those hard workouts are helping me clear it out. And I'm trying to find more rhythm with that. There's more, but I'll pause there.
Yeah. No, those are all great tips. I just want to give people ideas of like you never graduate from working with your human design chart. And like you said, the universe gives you like another thing or sign. You don't have to go looking for what you're going to work on next. Like it will tell you when you're ready for the next level of, and it will come in the form of a challenge sometime or a shakeup or a relationship change or just, anything like that. And that's when you can kind of be like, I'm not alone. Like if anything, receiving this wisdom that's come to us not even that long ago, it is just like such a blessing to be like, okay, like again, this invisible force that I know is true for me is also here on my chart and I can kind of like reference it.
Okay, I actually thought of another one
Yeah.
that is relevant to both of us. So I'm a 4th line in human design. That comes from my profile. I'm a 4-1. Dana's a 2-4. And I also have, like Dana, some strong intimacy parts in my chart. And so we both have gate 59 in our incarnation crust. That's a little bit more advanced, but 4th line. And so 4th lines are meant to receive their opportunities through their community. And so one thing I'm really working on is talking about my work more when I encounter people, because sometimes I just don't say that much about it because it can open up such a can of worms, or I'll feel insecure because I know a lot of people outside of maybe the spiritual world won't understand it. But that's actually not true. I actually have found the more I just talk about it, people, they may not know the term, they may not know what human design is, but they understand the concept. They're excited about it. They think it's cool. They're interested. And I'm working on this creative podcast project called the Artist Rendezvous. And I'm meeting people in Austin almost exclusively through my network. I think every person so far that I've interviewed has come through a relationship that I built or friend of a friend.
I didn't know that.
Had no cold reach outs.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or I've tried to, but I'm not getting responses. But all the people so far, and they're really, some of them they're all really, really cool people, are coming from network. All of them, actually. People telling me about the store, people meeting them, introducing me. and continuing to do that, asking my network for help, putting myself out there, and then meeting relationships through my network. And I try to do that with everything. I need a new dermatologist. I'm going to wait and keep telling my friends, does anyone have this? And then does anyone know? And then rather than Google it, because it just doesn't work. Every time I try to do that, I don't get the best option. Like I might have an adequate appointment, but I'm never satisfied. I get the best options when I work through my network.
Okay, so question. How do you use your one line then? Because I sometimes see people with a one line, they're actually really good at researching like the best dermatologists and stuff. And I'm a 2-4, so I don't have a one, and I actually hate researching products or like where to go. And I am always asking my network, which is my fourth line. But what do you use your like investigator, researcher one line for, right? In your life?
Yeah. So I, for instance, am having this podcast that I'm working on, my third. I have the Wilder
MG
podcast. I'm doing the Human Design podcast. And this is called the Artist Rendezvous. And it's totally separate from this kind of spiritual, mystical world. And I do the research by I'm reading books on how to have great storytelling in podcasts and how to really think more about your audience and researching the speaker who's coming on and researching who else has done ideas like this and like thinking through and planning out like what is the story arc going to be. So when I have the person, I'm informed and I'm educated and I'm like detail oriented. So it could also be maybe I'm referred 3 people and then I look into them and I know what I'm looking for. So like I'm not looking for any dermatologist. I'm looking for somebody who does XYZ. And so I have this like baseline knowledge and then can like springboard into the right person.
And I know that you've just started this project for the Artist Rendezvous. You've done your first couple interviews, and human design as a challenge for one lines can be that you want to just keep doing the research and you want all the foundational knowledge and you feel a little insecure about just getting started. Did that happen for you with this project?
That's actually where the help part probably comes in.
Yeah.
I knew it going somewhere. But yeah, that's actually how I relate to it. Yes, absolutely. I got really overwhelmed, even though I've had 2 other podcasts. So I was like, this isn't gonna be that hard. I've done this before. I've done now like probably 100 episodes, maybe about.
Yeah.
Not a lot of those interviews, many of them solo or me and my friend speaking, my business partner about human design. But I didn't think it'd be that hard. And then I started and I was like, this is different. And I want it to be so good. And I'm reading this NPR book about podcasting. It's really thorough. And I'm like, I don't know how to, like, it's at a much higher level than I was doing. And I got really overwhelmed. And I felt like I had to learn everything.
You were one-lining everything.
One-lining it. And then I was like, my dad is collaborating with me on this project. And he works in finance. Like, he has a different background, but he's creative. And he's given me so many ideas. Like, for instance, I have a creative advisory board. Put together a board of creatives and people who you respect, who are knowledgeable, and then ask them for help and get their background. And so that's what I'm doing to kind of break that one line. Because what one lines want to do is one lines want to know everything and they don't want to share it until they're confident about it. But the problem is the way that you actually learn the knowledge and become an authority, which is what one lines are supposed to be doing, is to start sharing before you're ready. And so I want to have all the answers before I share it. But the reality is it's when sharing it that I develop it. And I also realize I know more. So when I share it, people are like, oh, you're actually further along than I thought.
Yes.
This is actually looking really good. Like, okay, now seeing this, and they can't help you or come in until you let them in. And so I had that instinct and I still want to like learn a lot. So when I'm sharing them, I'm like, I've given this my all what I can, but I know that to really get this to where I need to open up to my network, which is the 4th line. Where maybe if it was a 1-3, it would be, okay, I've done it. I've done all this thought. And now I just need to start recording episodes.
Because the 3 is experiment.
The 3 needs to experiment. So like I've thought about how to create a good episode a lot. And now I just need to start creating it. And even as a 4-1, I need to do that too. But I'm going to get more, I think, from my network giving me advice and from me just experimenting a bunch of times.
And not only that, but because you respond as a manifesting generator, you're you're like reaching out to your network and they're giving you things to respond to. You don't have to say, yes, you're right, I'm going to go with your idea. You can actually feel in your sacral like, oh, actually, no, like I'm going to go with this one.
Okay, this is a good thing, and I'd love to talk this with people. So this is a little bit advanced, but if you know your centers, or if you want to work with your centers, this is a way you could do it. It's still, I think, accessible, and that is, so you have your sacral. You may have a sacral response to something, but then almost shut it down. And the ways that you're most likely to shut it down are the places that your open centers are. And if you have a lot of open centers, maybe the ones that are the most open, or just that you really feel connected to the wounds. So every open center has wounds. I actually think defined centers have wounds too. We don't talk about it, but they all have kind of like most positive expressions and more challenging expressions. And so I have a defined sacral, so I have these responses. And then the 3 open centers, I have 4 open centers, so there's 3 that are really going to cause me the most challenge. The first is my root, my open root. So getting overwhelmed with timing, feeling stressed, feeling like I have to rush, get it done, not having enough time. My spleen, so feeling it's too risky or not safe, or other people are really anxious. If I do that, it's going to make other people anxious or overwhelmed, so we're just not going to do it. And then my open ajna, which is, can I execute this? Do I have enough intelligence to get this to work? Am I smart enough to do this? And so what can happen is people will give me ideas, and then I'll be like, I don't know if I'm smart enough to do that. Cause it's like, maybe they're technical. And then I'll almost want to shut it down. Or I don't know if I have enough time to do that. That could be one of them. Or if I do that, it might make such a splash, or I might have to ask people to make them uncomfortable. And so I can notice I'll have it's like this mixed feeling. It's like I'm excited, but I'm too scared. And so I almost want to shut it down. And that's what I'm working on. I've like taken all of them. And if I feel really charged, then put that aside. Maybe like go on a walk, run, come back to it later, explore it again, and keep coming back to it until I'm in a grounded place with it. And I understand, why does this excite me and why does this obviously scare me? And is there a way I can mitigate the part that's scary about it so it doesn't have to feel so overwhelming? And then I can evaluate if I want to do it. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. The part that scares you, that part of you is just trying to keep you safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And these open centers are those places where we need to grow. So like, a more extreme example of this, we're going to hang out with our friend Danny. And Danny, 2 More Manifestor, excellent Akashic Records coach, Living Nectar is her name. And Danny has been my teacher for like 5 years. And so a few weeks into a coaching container with her 5 years ago, was really unhappy with my job. And she was like, I wanted to make a switch. I didn't know where I was going to go. So I was just kind of coming up with random jobs to apply to, like, made no sense. Like, I'll go work at a chocolate production company. Like, I'll go work in the factory. And everyone's like, let's take a step here. But I was like, I have to do something else. I have to get here. And she said, could you explore leaving your job without a plan, without an immediate job lined up to have space? And my immediate response was absolutely not, no way. But I had such a yes, like a steep, safer response to it. So I was like, no way, shut it down. Continued on with our session. 10 minutes later, the whole time I was like, you want that, you want that, you want that. You actually maybe could do that. I have some savings. Like, we could at least ask the question. But my open spleen, that would threaten that so much, because I would immediately, other people would be really scared for it. Open ajna, what people think about it, what their judgments. Would I be able to navigate the fears? Like, all of those things came up. And so then it's like, okay, let's just explore what I'm afraid of. Let's explore what other people think of. That will help me kind of figure out the clarity around it.
Yeah. I remember listening to one of your podcasts on Wild River, I think, quite a while ago, where you said, when like that fear comes up, actually go there, like write in your journal, what is the scariest thing that would happen if you failed? Like, if you did quit the job or whatever it is you're pursuing, like, allow yourself to actually go totally into the fear. And I loved that suggestion.
It was so helpful, like, with that specific thing, because the scariest thing at that time for me to happen would happen as I would go through my savings. I'm fortunate to have parents with house and who are generous, and I could move in with.
Mm,
Like, I have a housing
you had that
situation,
safety net.
and if worst case scenario, they passed away or something, like, suddenly, I also had friends or family that would welcome me in. So the worst case was I would definitely run out of money, and then I have to apply and like get another legal job. And maybe we're in a financial crisis because it was during the pandemic. So like it could take a long time. And I would feel really embarrassed and I would feel really disappointed and I might feel like a burden. And I could look at that fear and be like, okay, yeah, that would be terrible. But like I'm not gonna die. Because my response was almost like life or death. They're like, "You're gonna end up on the street." Like, it was almost that
Yeah.
visceral, and it's like, I looked at that, and it's like, yeah, that's unlikely that all those things would happen, but they could. And then what's really important is you read out the other fears, remember the more reasonable ones, which are like, I would have to go work a job that I sucked again and it'd make less money and it wouldn't help or whatever, like the more reasonable ones. And then critically, all the things that could go right.
Mm.
And spend as much time on what can go right as what could go wrong. But when you put it all there, then it's kind of like the shadow at night when you're like wake up in the middle of the night and you see a shadow and you're like, what is that? And you're so afraid to turn on the light. You're like, what if it's something scary? But then you actually do, and it's actually not that bad. It's the same process.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm thinking of like when I was a kid and I had the vacuum cleaner in my room still. And like all night I would wake up and be like, there's a person in my room.
I do
And finally I'm like, it's the vacuum cleaner. What a great metaphor for looking into your fears.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's actually not that bad. Yeah.
And even if it is genuinely scary, because sometimes people come to me and it's like the risks that they're doing are big, but then you're actually making the decision from what's here and rooted in that. And because you're looking at it, you have the ability to mitigate it.
Mm.
So maybe it's like, that's really scary. So what could I do something in a year that could reduce that risk? Can I still work here for a year, save the money? Or could I have certain conversations? Or are there certain things I can do to make this a lot less likely this worst case is going to happen? And then you get to you feel so much more empowered because you're being really wise with your decisions rather than reacting to either fear or to like the best case scenario and just leaping without looking.
Mhm.
Because that's where you actually undermine trust, is when you just leap without actually looking. Because then yeah, as a whole thing.
Yeah, I was thinking of my own chart because I have done that a lot in my life because my root center is connected to my emotional center. So I'm an emotional authority, plus my root is a pressure, right? So and I'm an MG. So like I would leap a lot before actually like dialing it back. And then the journey takes even longer because I have to like undo like where I wasn't supposed to go in the first place.
So leaping, when we say that, that could be things like it could be anything small, like starting a new project, but maybe like a one with from investment with it, or like a time or money investment. It could be leaving a partnership. It could be leaving a job. It could be starting a business. It could be moving and
Purchases of any
purchases of
sort.
any sort. Yeah, any financial time commitment or relationship transitions, I think could be considered a leap. And so I think leaps are great. We both have taken many in our lives in almost every category, but you can trust yourself so much more when you leap with looking down the ground and being like, am I leaping over like a puddle or am I leaping over like a cliff?
And am I being conditioned by other people who have left and think I need to do it the same way as them? And that's a part of human design that I think we forget a lot is that we're not just undoing the conditioning from our early life. Like we are always being conditioned regularly. And so to undo maybe somebody that I look up to that I follow on Instagram or something like that too. Yeah.
And it can look so many ways. And it's just being having that wisdom or have I keep using the word wisdom. It's really awareness and maturity to say, like, this is why I'm leaping. I maybe still have this faith that's gonna work out better than I understand. But I have at least thought about what could happen if it didn't go well. And I feel confident in this choice. Because that's the thing about spiritual awakenings. You mentioned that earlier, of like there are serious ups and downs. And it's been very fulfilling for me. So it's been worth it. And I think it's worth it for everyone, everyone I've encountered, but it can rock you a bit.
Yeah.
And I think having that eyes open and this willingness to support yourself, to ask for help, and to just stay connected to what feels fulfilling in your life ensures that that journey is fulfilling and supportive rather than just tumultuous.
Yeah.
Because it can feel tumultuous because you're changing your perspective of the world.
Yeah, I really feel like when you do have that spiritual awakening that you can't unsee, you can't unfeel, you can't unhave this inner knowing once you go through that. So there isn't really like I think I can't speak for everybody, but most people are happy to be been on the path that they're on because you can't really undo it. So now we just work with it.
People try,
Yeah.
or they go part way.
Or they put up very strict structures for themselves,
Mhm.
maybe. Yeah.
And I think the question always is, are you being honest with yourself about what you want? And are you giving yourself the opportunity to have what you want?
Mm.
And are you telling yourself, I want A, but I really want B? But you're telling yourself I want A because you're scared. It's okay to choose something because you think it just makes the most sense, even if it's not fully what you want. But I think being honest with yourself is the way to go about that so you don't regret it later or feel like you signed up for a life that you never actually wanted.
Yeah. Let's tie this convo back to when you talked about your friend Helena and you picking 3 things a week to do. And I want to tie it to being a manifesting generator because we've had a couple conversations this past weekend about like, yeah, a challenge of mine is spinning too many plates at one time. And then my energy is dispersed and then I'm overwhelmed. And I feel like both of you and I are kind of on that practice now of actually having boundaries around like I know the purpose of being an MG is to like get excited about the thing, do the thing, collect the tools, and you can quit halfway if you want. But sometimes our energy leaks. So what practices are you doing as an MG now to kind of hone it in and set up boundaries for yourself?
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great question. There's 2 things that come to mind. The first is a regular practice of connecting with myself, my body. So this will look like a walk without music, headphones, phone, or a meditation. It doesn't have to be long, but where I just check into my sacral, my primal, lower part of my body and say, how are we doing? Do you feel safe? What do we need physically? Check into my heart, what feels fulfilling, where I'm emotionally. And I call it my third eye, but basically, like, how is my intuition doing? It's kind of checking in with myself because this allows me to just stay connected to, do I know what I want? Is my body talking to me? What's happening? Then, on a more practical level, what I like to do is I write out priorities in my life and just general ones. Like maybe right now, my priorities, friendships, caring for my body, and a few projects of mine. And I sometimes will order them. And then when I get really excited as an MG, I look at it and be like, if this is priority level 4, then I can still do it. But am I making sure priority 1, 2, and 3 are happening? Because the reason I know that those are important is because I wasn't prioritizing them when I got sick, or I felt lonely or isolated, or I just realized, wow, I'm getting so much joy out of this. And because I'm connecting to my body enough and myself that I know what I want. So every once in a while, I kind of am like, what do I really want right now? Whenever I'm clear about it, I'll write and then I'll check in on that. The other more practical thing I like to do is at the beginning of the month, I will write out my things that I want to experience that month in different categories. I have it over there. It's like my April priorities and it's all these groups. And so I have basically like 3 things I'm doing for work, for income, plus the artist rendezvous, which is like feels like work, but it's just creative and there's no money. And so it's like, what are the things I need to make sure my bills are paid? And I'm doing that. What are the things I want to do to grow? And then what about the other categories of my life? Like, what do I want to see with exercise? What do I want to see with fitness? What are the friends I really want to see? And I put it up there. And then each week, when I'm making decisions for the week, I look at that list. And all of those things I had a response for or are essential. Like, I don't have a response for everything that I do, but I need to do it because it's how I, pay for things, or it's essential for my to do. It's essential. So then I look at that. And so then when I get this wild hair, which happens all the time, I'm like, I really want to do this thing. I look to see, like, is there space for this week? I try to keep things in my life spacious enough to me not be so full. I can't always do that, but I'm like, I don't have any plans in 2 weekends at all. I try to leave it like that. So if I have something really exciting, I just want to spend the time on. But when I look at the list and I kind of cross check it, and it's like, before I go spend 4 hours on this idea or on this thing tonight, is there anything on this list that I know is really important? Like spending time with one of my best friends that I know I'm going to get as much or more out of that I haven't yet made time for. So it just kind of helps me check it, because what I was noticing was I was leaking all this energy that I would get these like moments of inspiration. That's great. It's not a bad thing, but I have stuff that I know I want because I've gotten to a place where I the things in my life I want, and I'm not putting the energy things that I know I want because I'm putting it on these momentary things. And yeah, just having that, like, looking at it. And then if there's things that keep coming up that I keep wanting to do, then I add that to my list for the next month. Like, you really wanted to work on painting. And so let's make sure you're painting twice this month. We'll put it on that list. So then when I see it every day and I make the space for it.
The things that keep knocking on the door, you eventually make space for them.
Because I get things that knock once and I'm like, yeah. And then instead, it's like, what I like to do is if I'm really excited about it, I write it on a sticky note or some over there. I'm looking at my desk. That's why I keep pointing at. And I put it up. And then that way I won't forget. It kind of satisfies in that moment of like, we're not going to forget this. If you really want this next week, if you really want it next month, then we'll make space for it, rather than just like fully doing it on a whim. There's nothing wrong with doing it on a whim. The reason it's become an issue for me is I was doing that for years. I was doing everything on a whim, and then I wasn't moving forward, and I was losing trust in myself with my creative activities because I was starting a lot without finishing them, and it wasn't feeling good. And I was getting frustrated. So it's not that it's innately bad to do things on a whim, but I was spending more money than I had, or that it was wise to, on things that I wasn't maintaining interest in. And so I had to find a way to rebalance that.
Yeah. Yeah. And frustration is your guidepost that you're a little out of balance.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Sam. Thanks for sharing just everything you shared with us today. I love getting the insight of your life and how you work with being an MG and how you help facilitate that human design for other people. And I really enjoyed this weekend with you as well. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me, Dana. It's so nice to be connected with all of you. Come find me at Wild River or Moonrise on Instagram. It's Moonrise Community. That's where I talk about human design. Wild River is where I talk about spirituality and emotional health.
Yes.
And if you're in Austin, the Artist Rendezvous coming soon.
Coming soon. Thank you.
Thank you.